Hey everybody, welcome to the Kognitos Automation Bootcamp. I'm Drayton Wade, and I'll kick us off, and then we'll have two other hosts today, Peter Cook, who runs customer experience at Kognitos, and Rajesh Tiwary, who is one of our solutions engineers and also leads our training efforts. So really excited to have everyone here, and thank you for taking the time to join. As just a quick introduction to myself, I run our strategy and operations, but I've been in the automation space for a long time. And what really has me excited about Kognitos is that I'm not a technical guy. I'm a political science major, non-engineer, and yet I'm able to build and utilize Kognitos both in my day-to-day work and even to demo to customers and interact with customers along the way. So our hope today is really to give you a taste of the platform and allow you to get your hands on the platform afterwards. And our ask is that as you start working with the platform, with the Kognitos platform, that you would give us feedback. That is invaluable to us, and we really do listen and incorporate those particular thoughts. So today we'll do a very quick just kind of introduction to the Kognitos platform for those of you that haven't seen it or experienced it before. Then we'll dive in a little bit more into key differentiators. You know, how does this compare with RPA? How does this compare with traditional iPaaS? How is this generative AI involved, and why are we bold to claim that we have some of the most generative AI in production processes out there within the market? Then we'll go much more in depth into the product itself. You can think of this as a mini training, with the goal being that after you go through this, you'll have access to the platform and begin to play around and experiment from there. And then lastly, talk about what is possible, for the future, and have time for Q&A. In the chat, please feel free to ask questions along the way. We also have a couple solutions engineers on the call that will be working to answer those particular questions. Peter, you can go to the next one. So first of all, what is Kognitos? Kognitos, from a term where the name came from of the company, is actually cognitive OS. Our goal being that all users should be able to interact with Kognitos, either in the build section of automation or in the exception management, which is really a key part we'll touch upon a lot, or even in the logging. It should be English end-to-end, which is a fundamental difference from anything else on the market. We are NLP at our core. There is an English language interpreter that our founder, Benny Gill, and our early engineers created. And then we have large language models throughout Kognitos, helping with some of the exception handling in other areas. But our goal is to do a few things. One, it's to reduce the time that it takes to build automations. But that's actually one of the smaller parts of what the real goal and value is. The second part is that we enable users to automate a much wider set of processes that you just couldn't do with RPA, right? Where you have lots of exceptions, where you have unstructured data, where you have maybe the process changes quite frequently. And you need those subject matter experts to be able to understand the automation by having it in English and be able to work with the system. And our goal in that case is to then reduce the burden of automation on IT, because we find today that even when you're building automations really well and you have a good operating model, things get stuck in IT where they can't handle the volume of process requests coming in, and they spend a lot of their time maintaining automation. So by making it in natural language, make it accessible and make that easier for IT departments. Peter, you can go to the next slide if you don't mind. So use cases with Kognitos. A lot of these you'll see are probably fairly similar to what you'd see in RPA. But the big difference is most of our customers have RPA already. We come in with our customers and we say, hey, in the past, maybe you had a consulting firm that did a study and listed out 100 processes that would be good candidates for automation, that have high volume, that have high frequency, that have lots of documents and multiple applications. The problem is you've probably only automated 10 to 20% of that because of those exceptions and because of the complexity, different modalities that may occur. We like those processes. So when you think Kognitos, think that we like the exception-heavy processes. We like reconciliations. We like three-way match. We like KYC, right? Things that are traditionally a challenge. And we can build those as fast as you would build any traditional automation, if not faster. from there. You can go to the next slide. We are an AI company. There was actually a study that came out recently from one of the leading venture capital firms, and they called us Gen 3 of automation. Gen 1 being in-app automation, Gen 2 being the legacy RPA players, then Gen 3 being companies that aren't RPA, but that are in automation. And that's where we fall in, where we are built with AI on our core. And we have generative AI built into the process in production in key process areas, not just marketing, but finance and accounting, in supply chain management, in procurement with different customers. So what we do, and the reason we have that ability, is you can think of Kognitos as being modeled after the human brain. In the human brain, you have a highly logical side. That's really good because it can give you the precise answer that you want every time. It gives you safety. It gives you that determinism. And then you have a really creative side, which, I'm from the South, so we would call it our gut or our instinct. Large language models are that creative side, but the challenge is you don't actually know where the answer comes from. And that's what we hear a lot of customers struggling with is I can't get Gen AI in because I can't have that certainty. What you'll see today is at Kognitos, we've built it to where you combine both of those in a way that you get the value out of AI, but you still have that determinism that gives you the certainty to use this for critical processes. You go to the next slide. It's all in English, end to end. You're going to hear this throughout. Again, the build is in English, where you're writing those steps of the automation one by one. When an exception occurs, Kognitos actually creates an English question or an English statement to present that to a subject matter expert or a business user, and enables the user to respond back in English. We call that conversational exception handling. And actually everything that's logged, all the different logs, every fact, every run, every prompt of LLM is logged in English too. So now we're making computers speak our language, not requiring people to learn how to talk to computers. Go next slide. The last thing I'll cover, and then I'm going to hand it off to Peter to go deeper, is, we're API automation. We do not do screen scraping today. It's one thing to keep in mind. And we found that more and more customers are moving to where, you have that API access, but we're built with security in mind. We are SOC 2 Type 2. We integrate with all the core ERP, CRM, and other systems. We work with all the different large language models. You really have that flexibility, and the same thing with OCR. And we're one of the few companies that actually has a partnership with OpenAI around HIPAA, meaning that the data that's being used will not be used to train, OpenAI in that particular case. So we're enterprise ready, and we tend to work with some of the larger enterprises in the world. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Peter and let him dive in more.
Hey, everyone. I'm going to take you through a few key differentiators that are going to be significant, especially for those of you that are familiar with automation or currently have an automation practice, because this is unlike any other type of automation that you've experienced. So one key element is the Kognitos platform. All attributes exposed to that given user are in English, human readable English. So this would be from those that are creating automations, as well as those that would be handling or managing an exception. And the machine is coming back to the user asking for input, completely understandable by a common user what the machine needs to continue. Also, all process logs. So what does this mean in terms of translating those types of capabilities into benefits? Well, it means that automation creation is naturally much faster in terms of understanding how to create an automation. Imagine training an intern, training a new employee in terms of the step-by-step, what you would do. It's the same way with creating within Kognitos. Also, in terms of, you may have heard or be familiar with the terminology about reusable components. Well, you can simply take the English script for a given functionality and copy and paste it into a new automation that you're preparing. So it's as easy as that. And therefore, between the accelerated time to train, the ability to copy and paste, enterprise-ready automations can be created significantly faster. So one other key element here is, how many of you today can, as say the business department leader or manager, audit what happened and understand exactly if something went wrong, why it went wrong. And perhaps you need to work with IT for that. It's completely in a business system of record in human readable English. So that's a significant differentiator for Kognitos. So next, we're going to talk about our exception center. And so processes that are unable to go straight through, they pause. And this pause means the machine is going to prompt the one or more users that are business practice SMEs for the given process that it needs something. It might be a file, might be a link doesn't work. And so they're going to be able to then easily navigate to and read and understand what the machine needs, address that, and move on. Now, also, some of you may be familiar with process mining, and as such, you'll see a happy path, and you'll see all kinds of derivative paths. Well, with Kognitos, you begin by simply automating to the happy path, and then through exceptions and also through process training. That process training happens and applies through exception center. You'll see that process definition just expand to accommodate for all the derivatives for which that business practice SME has approved. That I have trained the process that when this happens, it's okay that it goes off to this offshoot. And then it won't ask you again. If the process is trained for that exception, then it'll just naturally accommodate it in the future. So the scope of the given process started a happy path, but it grows to extend to all those other approved derivative type of processes. So in this way, business SMEs are really in control of the process. Typical RPA solutions you may be using will have a different automation for every derivative of that process. In this case, single process just simply expands. So you can imagine that the total cost of ownership here is significantly less. And also, business SMEs are now empowered to not go into a queue, justify the derivative process, to have a whole new automation created. They're simply able to take action and quickly and have that approved exception become common practice every time that process repeats. All right, the next key differentiator is really simple commercial model to both understand across the business, across IT, as well as to scale. So with our commercial model, our customers pay us per run. So any OCR or associated LLM costs, those are included in that cost per run. So I'm going to transition now also to the benefits of that. So there is zero cost to get started. And so you think about the runs can also be spread across all processes. So perhaps you buy a million runs, process runs, and your processes need that level of number of runs. In this case, if you have 5, 10, 20 processes, it's no problem. All runs can be spread across that. And then even those runs that have an exception, because remember, exception just pauses the process for input. Still, those only count as one run. So you can see that it's really easy to get started in terms of very low to no type of infrastructure fees to get started. So the serverless aspect is also important. So in this case, in typical automation, you'd imagine we're going to look at your needs, and from that determine what kind of bot estimate is needed, how many potential virtual machines are needed. All of that is out of the picture now, right? So whether you need to send a million instances at the same time or one at a time over the course of a week, it doesn't matter, right? We will simultaneously scale to what the need is, and there's no cost for that. So it really equates to extremely low cost of ownership. And I think there's a lot of integrity in the pay-per-run model, because we get paid when you're getting value, and the value you're getting is from running that automation. And so I think it's a model that our customers are really enjoying. All right, with that, I'm going to transition to Rajesh, who's going to take you through and begin some going deeper with the bootcamp session.
Thank you, Peter. Let me put my screen up there. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So finally, we get to see the bootcamp session where we'll talk about maybe in a couple slides about a high-level overview of how the Kognitos platform looks like, things around it, what you can do, what you cannot do, how your organization fits into the whole ecosystem of Kognitos. And then we'll also look at some live examples, talk about how we are different from traditional automation tools and all of that. So why don't I get started? The first thing that I want to talk about is the world of possibilities with Kognitos. Key areas that you should know before we even dive deep into the Kognitos platform itself. So essentially, what we are trying to say is Kognitos is the first platform or automation solution in the market that really understands how humans behave rather than understanding how humans behave on the screen. That means we don't capture click and type level information. We capture more about on your process level information. And then we infuse that with generative AI at the core. That's why, and bringing the power of generative AI to you all, you could dream of a situation with Cognitos where you're training your processes on different exception scenarios using exception handling. That's what Peter was talking about as our biggest differentiator. Our processes don't stop in between and terminate. They give you a chance of recovery where a human could come in, um, help out the automation, and then the automation continues. We do extensive API-based automations, and that's our one of the key strength areas. And then we do document processing quite efficiently. You don't need to train a machine learning model just to be able to process a document of your own type. We give you a model-less infrastructure where you could bring in your document, start training that with humans and not worrying about how many samples you need for every document and all of that. What we don't do is UI-based automation because it's too fragile, it's bound to break, and we are not in the space of doing UI-based automations. But anything related to APIs and then any other business process that you want to infuse GenAI with, Cognitos is your solution. We jump into the platform now, and before we jump into any other detail, this is how the hierarchy looks like when you get into the environment of Cognitos. So under the Cognitos platform, you have organizations or companies which sit, and inside a company, you could have multiple departments embracing automation. That's where you could segregate them in the departments level. And then for every department, you could have set of people assigned, business SMEs, automation champions, and then they create their processes accordingly. A good slide to give you a high-level overview of how you could segregate things in your automation landscape and only have people in an environment where they're responsible of things and they could really take care of those. Moving ahead, this diagram in the middle is what our Cognitos platform essentially is. These are the major areas you will find in the Cognitos environment. The first is the dashboard. Essentially any dashboard, how it would look like. Then you have a playground area where you could build your automations in English. And then you have the processes area where you'll be able to manage your live automations. This is the production environment where once your automation creation is done in playground, we promote them to processes area. The next section is exceptions. We talked about it, you heard about it as well. This is where you handle issues with these live automations, help them out when they're stuck, and then give them a point of recovery from there, and they continue executing the process that they are intended to be. We have books, just like humans would read books to enhance their knowledge. These are the different kind of integrations you will need for your ERPs, CRMs, and whatnot. And then department is what we saw earlier. Anything on the management level, you want to manage stuff. You would want to go into departments, maintain your business areas, users, automations, and everything and anything that you need. Before I jump into the platform, wanted to show you a brief life cycle of automation with Kognitos. We talked about three major areas playing a major role in your journey with Kognitos: playground, processes, and exception center. Playground is the area where the automation champion builds their processes, tests them, and if there are errors, goes back to rebuilding them and until obviously the build is complete. That means you're happy with your automation, what you have created. Now you're ready to make it live. That's where you create a process or promote the process from a playground. And once you have the processes, you would want to use that, right? You have multiple kinds of triggers that you can use. Manual triggers, you could come into the platform, hit the run button, and start the automation. You could also schedule things as per your schedules. And then last but the most powerful one is an email trigger. As long as the automation knows what you expect in the email, you could send an email directly to the automation. You have unique email IDs for every automation. And then that email will be pulled in, the process will be triggered, and it will run. What happens once you trigger a process? It might encounter an exception. And that's where you will come to the exception center. When you hit an exception in your process, as I mentioned, the process does not terminate. It does not, you know, just lose control. It sends a notification to the human user who is supposed to handle that automation, and the human user jumps in and resolves the exception. Once that happens, the process continues, and then it goes from there. Why don't I jump to the product itself, show you how does it look like. So this is the left-hand side panel that you saw earlier, uh, where it's essentially the dashboard, the kind of automations that you have built and published. Um, what are their total runs? And if you notice, we do tell you about the exceptions count. The exceptions count essentially show you how many exceptions occurred over a period of last week, 48 or 24 hours, and then how many exceptions were there, how many were resolved, and how many needs attention. Then you have the playground area. This is where you would build your automations. Let's see a very small example where you could build your automations. In playground, you have this button on the right, and obviously these are the historical playgrounds that I have created just for today's demo. So you have this button over here on the top right. You could click on the new playground button. It essentially opens up a new playground area for you that you can start using to build your automations. So when you open up a playground, this is how it would look like. It would look like a blank notebook canvas where you have this line where it says type a command. This is where you would write your chain of directions to the machine in English, and then the machine would try to run it. You have a run button here. Everything is auto-saved. There's no save button. And then you could save something as a process only when you're done building the process. So let's take a very basic example of a mathematical process. Like, let's say I have a cube and then I want to define something for it, right? Just like, the length is 100, the width is 200, and the height is 300. When I write all these three things, and I hit the run button, Kognitos takes all these commands. You would see this icon over here changing faces and statuses on right next to it. This tells you, and also the green indicator on the lines tells you that the process has executed. Now it is done. That means everything that was there in the notebook was run and it was successful. For every line, you can see an output over there. This is the output panel. You have something called facts where we have defined a thing called the length as 100. Now I could write something like, the area is the length into the width. When I run that, as expected, it will try to give me a multiplication of those two values and gives me an area for that. But what if I say get the volume? When I run this, the process, I have not specified it, and it could be like, this would be a more generic process, and you would have a scenario where the volume won't be the same, or the formula for the volume won't be the same every time. And there are n number of scenarios of identifying volumes. You don't want to define that in your process, but want to teach the machine over a course of time using learnings. A very basic example, but it will help you relate to it. So when I say get the volume, the line turned green and the output panel opened up, but now it is in the questions area. It is asking me to provide a volume. This is the exception management in the development area. When it is in production, the same view will happen in the exceptions area. For now, I have multiple ways to help out the machine here. Think of these like your intern. You hire an intern on day one. You teach them a very straightforward way of doing things. They start doing that in their daily life. And they hit a scenario where they don't know how to do it. They come back to you, just like the machine came here, and not like typical machines giving you, you know, very complicated error statements. You would get a more English level statement that asks you to provide the volume because it does not know how to get the volume. Just like you could help your intern in two ways. One, you could answer their query, look at their situation and tell them, okay, this is the thing that you're looking for. That's right in answer. I could say what is the volume given the length and the width and the height. But that's more of spoon feeding the intern. You could upload files, but that's not relevant here. You could say, I don't know, but that's not helping the intern. You could skip the step, just tell the intern to, pass it to someone else who knows how to do it. Or you could help the intern compute an answer where you teach them how do you get the volume in this case, but how do you get to solve that exception scenario whenever you are experiencing it. So in this case, what I will tell to the intern that for you to get the volume, you need to do this, the length into the width into the height. I can test my thing here just to see if it works. It works perfectly. I'll say done, and I'll say always use this answer for this department. And when I submit that, number one, I helped the intern the first time. I told them not by spoon feeding, but I taught them how to handle a scenario when you are asked about to get the volume. The next time, when I, let's say, change my parameters and then run this whole thing again, you will see that it will now not fail on the get the volume area because it has a previously answered question. Based on that, it was able to calculate the volume even if the parameters changed. That's the power of the Kognitos platform. Number one, you could write things in plain and simple English. Number two, you could teach the machine And then the machine would refer to the teachings the next time. We call them as learnings. Whenever the machine learns from it, it remembers it. Next time, before asking you again, they will uh, essentially try to check for learnings, learn from that, and handle that exception accordingly. So, going back to the slides, this is what playground, what we saw. You can write your automations in English. It's a notebook-based environment, and it uses digital workers. So the icon that we are seeing here, it's essentially a digital worker that's helping you run things in the cloud and taking off the load from your physical infrastructure to the cloud. And that's how the Kognitos environment works. We definitely build our automations in English, but obviously there is a subset of English that we use today to talk to the machine. Fluid language is a capability that we are going to launch very soon, where when you write anything and everything in English, we try to convert that into Kognitos acceptable language, even without the user bothering about should I know it or should I not. That's the roadmap where you could write any and every English. Today, you have to use a subset of English for building your automations with Kognitos. What if you don't know what to write? What if you don't know how to write things? Concierge is there to help you out. It is currently in beta stage, but it's a utility in the playground where you could ask Concierge for help, ask it any question in plain and simple English, and then it transforms your queries into Kognitos English language or automation script. And you can hit the try it button for you to be able to use it. Like in this case, I can go, then this is the button that enables Concierge in the playground. I can just ask it, how do I read documents? When I say that, Concierge takes my English input, processes it, obviously, through a large language model, of course, and then tries to come back to me with different ways how you could read a document. There are multiple examples how you could get fields out of it and all of that. What you really need to do is you need to click on the try it button and it gets pasted in your environment. And you could try these statements out as well. This is currently in beta, but it will be available very soon. Next part to it is processes. Processes is where you can do many things. This is where, if I go back just to correlate, we saw playground and how you could build your things, how concierge could help you out if you're stuck somewhere. Once you're at the build complete stage, you could create processes from them. And once you create processes, you could do multiple things in your processes. Trigger your automations, right? We talked about these. Manual trigger, you hit the run button, send an email to your automation, or schedule the run as per a time thing. You can manage your runs, look at a high level, even create reports out of it and all of that. Manage your exceptions. This is in the production area. And the last but not the least, manage learnings. We saw how we teach the machine, it learns from it, and how you use that learning in future as and when needed. Coming back to the platform, processes. This is where you will see any and every process that you have published. And if I go inside a specific process, you will see first the code that's there or the automation, English automation script that you have built. You can hit the view runs area where you can see the historical runs, how they have behaved, who initiated that, what is the status. You can look into exceptions if there are any or in the pending stage. You can look at the learnings. You can also schedule your automations. This is where you copy the process email to send an email to it. So essentially, the process page helps you in monitoring your runs, even running your automation, right? When I said triggering the automation, it's as simple as hitting this run button. When I hit the run button, the Kognitos environment starts, first of all, creating a digital worker for you, and then it starts running the process as it should. You could look at historical runs and see how things have went through in those historical runs. So this process was executed by an email, so it knows the email body, the HTML, email sender, and all of that. But then it's also executing the whole process. So it essentially happens in the process area. You could see this thing is running right now and trying to extract uh, whatever it is tasked to. That's the processes area. Exceptions area is where you hit exceptions and you try to help out the machine on the exceptions part. We saw one of the exceptions in the playground, and exceptions, when you help them out, it leads to learnings. So if you remember, we did this a while back where we taught the machine how to get the volume. And the learned answer or method is to be able to multiply those three parameters. What if these parameters are not available? What if the object is not a square or a cube, but a sphere or a pyramid? This will give you an exception, and then you could teach it again. If it's a pyramid, use this formula, something like that. That's the processes area. And then exceptions. We saw how you would get the exceptions in English. The key feature here is you could delegate these exceptions to team members, and they could handle them. You could assign it to other folks and make them responsible for helping the machine. The exception message is shown in English. We saw instead of giving you a very coding based exception, these exceptions are processed and then the core message is shown in English so that the SME could come in and then even handle the exceptions in an English language. There are multiple ways to handling exceptions. We saw this in the playground where you use any of these depending on the situation you're in and then do that. Also, we saw how the process learns from the exceptions that were being handled. Moving ahead, so we talked about these when Peter was discussing through the benefits that you get, but like to touch them again. No more infra challenges. Cloud workers, I talked about them. They take all the loads of your processes, and we have a AWS-backed instances available across the globe for you to be able to deploy Kognitos in your environment in compliance with your state, country, or the world laws. No more bots. You don't have to worry about sizing or identifying the number of parts, machines, and all of that needed for your automation program. We provide you the option of auto scaling up or down based on your volumes. And we don't really care. It's all based on a run-based pricing. That's where we don't have any additional costs. It's a per run based pricing model. OCRs, large language models, and other features that you use as a part of the platform are included in the same license. With that, why don't we jump into a demo? I'll show you two processes today where are essentially three processes where you'll be able to see how do we write some sort of a thing in Kognitos world and how do we use it. So over here, this is a fake user generator API, which is an open API. So it's good to showcase an open API without revealing some data. So this is my automation script, which essentially I've told it that, hey, there's a URL, that's the API URL. You want to try to get that. And in the next statement, I say that retrieve the URL as output. So it tells the machine to hit the URL and get the output from that. Now, with the output, you could do a lot of things. You'll have a content, you'll have status code, there will be some sort of a text in the output as well. And then you would want to get something else from the text, right? Like the ID or the email. Even in the output, you could process it through LLMs. That's where I'm asking Concierge here to get me the output with, with a JSON format where I have these 5 columns: the ID, the first name, last name, email ID, and the password. When I run this automation, what essentially happens? I'll show you a previously executed run. When I hit that URL, I get my result in the output area. I could see the content of the output. It's a standard, output from a API. You can get the status code, you can get the output text, and you could also try to find, fields in there like, hey, what's the UID or what's the email ID that I'm looking at. And then when I ask Concierge for details, it gives me a JSON with the expected format. And when you look at this JSON, you'll be able to see it kind of followed what I have asked it to. And inside a data container, it has multiple entries for data and has given me only what I needed from that API. That's how you will be able to very easily, in English, run your APIs, get or post or push things into the APIs, and also process the output through an LLM or through normal methods, just like you would access a JSON. But then it's all in plain and simple English. That's the faker or the fake users API that we have used for the first demo. The second demo is on extracting details from a document. There could be multiple types of documents that you could run through. I have 3 examples that I'll talk about today: a rental contract, a flight ticket, and then maybe an invoice as well. There's a basic English that you would want to follow when you want to extract data from things. In extraction, you could either be specific or generic. And exception handling, you could do multiple ways, either being specific or generic. Specific is where the machine does not really learn. You're spoon feeding the machine. It's not a good practice, but sometimes you have to do it. Generic is where you kind of teach the machine, and then the machine remembers it for the next time it encounters a similar scenario. Going back to my environment and the processes area, I have the second process that I want to talk about today: processing a legal contract. So it's not a huge process, but then I get everything that I want from the legal contract. So I'm asking to get the document and the lines of the document, and then I ask basically my concierge that, hey, based on the provided lines, can you get me the key details, like the parties involved in the contract, start and end date, rental and deposit value, key terms of the contract as well, and then get that in a JSON format. If I show you a executed run, this is how I have triggered this, and I have the document right here. It's a typical rental contract format that's followed across in India, but then it could be any kind of a contract, might not be just a rental contract. What I've asked the machine is to get me multiple values, and when that gets executed, what I get is a JSON that gives me each and everything that I need to extract from this contract, like the parties, the landlord name and address, the tenant name and address, contract dates, that means the start and the end date of the contract, financials, essentially the rent and deposit that you have to do, and then key terms like something around the leased property, guest policies, pets policies, smoking, furnishing, and all those other terms in the contract that might prove useful. This could be extended to any and every unstructured document that you have in your funnel, and you could use the power of Kognitos and large language models to extract key details, process them, and then use them further in your business processes. Last but not the least is a process where you have a very standard document, like a flight ticket, right? I'm trying to show you two things here. One, I'm trying to ask concierge again to give me a JSON where passenger name is there, the PNR, and the total amount is there. But then I'm also trying to get all the fields on the document. I'm trying to get the document's passenger name and the PNR number. Let's look at a historical run. How does this process run through? Oh, maybe I don't have a historical run. Why don't I run it again? So let's do this live. I'll go through the process, show you, how does this happen. So when I told the machine to get the scan document, it does not even know. I didn't email it. I clicked the run button. So what I can do is I can upload a file to this particular process. Let's see how it processes that. So I'll upload one of my flight tickets recently. Then I'll see how does the Kognitos engine process that flight ticket and gets me the details that I need. So I've uploaded the document. It is trying to process that. Now it is running the concierge statement, getting the document's fields, the document's passenger name. Kind of got stuck there. But let's look at the other parts. Get the document's lines. Got me all of that. But before that even, why don't I show you the document? So this is the document that I was working through. And when I asked the concierge about the details it needed, it was like, hey, this is the passenger name, the PNR or the travel thing that I was using is Uber, and then this is the total amount that it has to extract through. Essentially, need to upload a flight ticket, but I uploaded a cab ticket. Let me run this again. Let me show you how does it extract everything else when I upload a flight ticket. Yeah, it was a tough call, but I got my flight ticket finally, uploaded that, and when I run this again, I'll be able to see all the flight level details, like the passenger name and the PNR also being extracted. While that runs, I'll also like to show you the power of parallel processing that we were talking about. I'll go to my processes page and show you this process. In the runs area, everything is finished and we don't have any pending runs. I do have a demo process that will kind of execute multiple runs or emails to the process that we have, and we'll see that how parallel processing also works in the Kognitos environment. I ran this playground just to broadcast things to this particular process, essentially sending email to this process and making it run multiple times in parallel. So in a moment, you will see that there will be a lot of entries in here, which are now in the running stage. Let me go back to the process, open the process page, the runs area. You will see my broadcaster is working now, and multiple instances of the same processes are initialized right now. What happens is auto scaling now, because the process was not even expecting that you would run it 10 times or 100 times, but I just mimicked that I'm going to run it about 10 times now. You will see all of them initiated in parallel, and then if I hit a refresh, you'll see a lot of them in the processing stages. When their worker is ready, a lot of them are still trying to get their workers ready. If I refresh again, just to show you how things are changing, you would see that most of them are now in processing stage, or they have moved to the finished stage. Waiting for the page to load here. So you saw 9:53 p.m., just about a minute ago, I ran multiple instances of the same process. They all were finished in parallel. Scaling up or scaling down is not at all a problem with Kognitos. Let's look at the flight process that we were doing, where we uploaded the flight ticket again. And let's see how is it performing. So 9:50 p.m., we started this run. It is waiting for an answer from my side. But then if you see, it is able to get most of the details, the passenger name, the PNR, and the total amount of the flight ticket cost. This is the ticket that I was trying to showcase earlier. And then it also got the passenger name. It also gives you a list of everything that you can find in the ticket. All those details can be extracted very easily. That's one command in Kognitos, get the documents fields, and you get each and every field out of the documents. Going back, I think that was most of the areas that I wanted to cover today, give you a brief overview of the Kognitos platform, help you out with how could you walk through, have a flow of the Kognitos environment as well. And then last but not the least, get a taste of different kind of processes that you can build with Kognitos. With that, I'll pass it over back to Peter.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rajesh. Hey, Rajesh, if you'd go ahead and show this slide, perfect. So, hey guys, I'm sure that you're very motivated now to get to test, get started, and see how that works. And you can plan that we're going to reach out to you with instructions on really how to create your own organization, create your own playground. See that this is really exactly as Rajesh showed it. So, visit our Kognitos docs also. Ask us and provide us with questions, and we want to ensure that we have the most user-friendly platform there is to create and use and make part of your everyday business needs. Coming soon, really looking forward to being able to have like on-demand foundation and advanced courses. That's led by Rajesh, and there's steep demand for that, and so look for that coming soon. And also a Kognitos community forum. So really excited about that to help out everyone learn from one another faster and just accelerate that learning process. So we're providing here the support at Kognitos.com. We're going to address any questions or needs you have, in a timely way. And we'll now have a little bit of time left, at least 10 minutes, for just open Q&A. So are there any questions people wanted to type in and have us address live? All right, thanks, Rajesh. All right, I was waiting for Hitesh. It looked like he wanted to, 1 second, perhaps he was typing his message. Anyone else? So I'm sure many of you are encouraged by, in the technology space, or encouraged by your business leaders to incorporate Gen AI in the business. This is exactly the space and the method to do that. So, all right. So we now have a question from Yosu. So absolutely, we have integrations with SAP. And with Oracle, those should be on our website today to reference to those use cases that do accommodate for that. And so in such, they will have the associated case studies that you could reference. Yeah, Hitesh, I would reach out to us. Let's get our contact information and get something started, and we'll work at how we can support your needs. There will also be recording will be available. It'll be available actually on demand. We'll also be following up with communication to all participants here to provide that easy access to the information that we covered. So, one thing I also want to accommodate, and Rajesh, there might be questions in terms of are we stuck on one OCR method, one LLM method or not? And we really use the appropriate technology for the use case. So, and it might tie into what Rob was looking for as well in terms of the options available. Yeah, Hitesh, it'd be great if you could utilize the support at Kognitos.com. Also, you're going to be receiving a copy of this presentation that's going to have Drayton, myself, and Rajesh's direct email. That's great as well. Hey, Azu, if you would contact that support at Kognitos.com, we're going to receive a copy of that. There are presentations that I have that go beyond the case studies that are provided on our website, and we can potentially have a follow-up there. But at a minimum, I could provide you more information regarding those use cases. I think someone had also mentioned interest as it pertains to AP. I would say that it's a natural place for all of our customers to really start and expand within finance and accounting. It's so document heavy. It's also, of course, it's really appropriate for our technology. So they're getting outstanding ROI there, and also able to accommodate for use cases never before available with traditional automation. Yeah, Rob, we're going to be providing in the follow-up instructions on how to sign up, create an organization where you can have your own playground. So that'll provide that content for you.
Yeah, essentially the post-event mailer, you'll have a lot of things. You'll get to know how do you visit the Kognitos documentations portal, how do you also play around with our platform in a self-serve mode, and also reach back to us at support.kognitos@kognitos.com for any questions that you might have.
Great. Our head of marketing has just informed everyone that you're going to have it within 30 minutes. So we move fast. All right, I'm going to give it 20 more seconds for anyone to indicate they have another question. And if not, we'll wind down. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for participating. It was really a pleasure to be able to demonstrate, describe what Kognitos can do for you. I hope that you were really inspired by what's possible today, and it's unlike any type of automation technology that you've ever heard of. So thanks so much. We appreciate your participation.
Thank you, everyone.